You are taught to distrust desire. You are told it is the cause of confusion, the engine of error, the proof of weakness. You try to discipline it, manage it, or drive it out. Yet the moment you push it away, it returns in another form. You notice a pattern. Suppression multiplies what it tries to end. Rumi enters here, not to praise desire, but to read it differently. He argued that when desire is faced without an object, it reveals its source. He called this purification, not indulgence. What you fear as fire is actually a test of understanding. Does desire consume you, or does it consume only the illusion that you are separate from what you seek? If desire is not the problem, what exactly is? You examine your record with desire. It promises rest, yet it keeps you moving. You fulfill one aim and another rises. This looks like a failure. You conclude that desire is broken, but look closer. The movement continues because the object never equals the expectation you place on it. Desire is blamed for a mismatch it did not create. The mind projects an end that no object can deliver, then condemns desire for not delivering it. Rumi's reading is sharper. The failure of desire is diagnostic, not tragic. It reveals that your aim is too small for your longing. If the object is the wrong answer to a right question, should you silence the question or ask it more precisely? Rumi lived in 13th century Persia. He was a jurist, teacher, and theologian. His early path valued order, restraint, and clarity. Then he encountered Shams of Tabriz. The meeting did not add emotional drama. It altered the method. The axis shifted from control to recognition. Desire was no longer an enemy to defeat, but a pressure to understand. His poetry and discourses reflect this reversal. He reads longing not as appetite lacking discipline, but as awareness seeking its source. The shift was practical, not ornamental. The question was simple. What is desire when it no longer chases objects, but inquires into itself? Rumi's claim is precise. Desire is a movement of being toward knowledge of itself. When you attach it to limited forms, it becomes restless. When you release it from the demand for objects, it clarifies. The same force that scatters the unexamined mind concentrates the examining one. You do not eliminate desire. You refine its intention. He calls this purification of burning, not of life, but of confusion. The self that says, "My desire," narrows a universal motion into a private project. The work is to recognize the motion as larger than the project. Then the center of demand weakens, and a different center appears, attention without grasping. If desire is a movement of being, are you moving toward the real, or is the real moving through you? Who is the mover when grasping ends? You fear that allowing desire will lead to loss of control. You imagine a slide into compulsion. This fear keeps you policing yourself. Yet the policing never brings peace. It only exhausts you. Rumi would say, compulsion arises not from allowing desire, but from misreading it. When desire is forced to serve a narrow identity, it becomes agitated and crude. When identity loosens, the same desire becomes stable and exact. The conflict is not between you and desire. It is between your imagined limits and desire's actual range. The question is not, how do I stop wanting? But what is this wanting when I do not assign it an object? If you do not fear desire, would control still appear necessary, or would understanding replace it? You test a new stance. You neither chase nor suppress. You observe. Desire rises. You stay present. A thought offers an object. You let the thought pass. Another object appears. You let that pass as well. The energy remains while the targets change. This reveals a fact. The energy is not identical to its targets. Rumi would name this the first clean seeing. Desire is now experienced as intensity without narrative. It is no longer a command. It is information. Its direction is not outward but inward, toward the source from which it appears. The more you stay with it, the less it demands an endpoint. What was hunger becomes inquiry. If the movement can stand without objects, what does it now point to? A further recognition appears. You notice that the witness of desire is not moved by its fluctuations. Attention stays simple, even as the current changes. Rumi's language here is spare. When the desirer relaxes, desire is pure. The separation between I who want and what is wanted weakens. The wanting reveals itself as a sign of nearness, not distance. The very pressure that once drove you outward now draws you toward what is already present. You do not arrive at a new object. You recognize a prior ground. The paradox resolves conceptually. Desire fulfilled is desire seen as the real seeking itself. When the seeker, the search, and the sought are one movement, who stands outside to measure success? Stillness here is not passivity. It is the absence of negotiation. You are no longer bargaining with experience. The intensity remains, but its meaning has changed. It does not demand conclusion. It discloses structure. Rumi's burning is complete when the identity that claimed ownership of longing has no function left. What remains is desire without a desirer. The result is quiet, not because energy ended, but because conflict ended. You can act or not act without the compulsion to prove or secure. Choice returns as clarity, not as struggle. If action is now an expression of understanding rather than a chase for completion, what could compulsion add? Daily life tests this insight. You meet ambition, attraction, appetite, fear. You apply the same stance. Allow, examine, refine. You track the subtle moment when an object claims to be your answer. You do not argue with the object. You check the claim. If the claim dissolves, the energy returns to attention. If an action is needed, you act without loading the action with salvation. Rumi's method here is practical. Let desire tell the truth about its own scope. If it belongs to a limited aim, keep it limited and clear. If it points beyond, do not force it to serve what it cannot satisfy. The criterion is simple. Does this movement produce grasping, or does it produce understanding? You began by distrusting desire. You tried to end it. It would not end. Rumi redirected the question. Do not kill the messenger. Read the message. Desire is not a verdict against you. It is a function of calling you to accurately see. When you remove the demand for objects, you meet the movement itself. It clarifies you. It does not ask for your defeat. It asks for your honesty. In that honesty, the fire completes its work. The self that defended and the self that resisted no longer organize your thoughts. What remains is simple attention and a steady capacity to respond. If desire now appears as recognition rather than lack, was it ever your enemy? Or was it your first teacher all along?